There's an engineer in Austin, $145,000 a year, who spent the last 3 days before the SpaceX IPO scrolling investing Discord channels, reading Reddit threads until 2 in the morning, and finally decided to pull $18,000 out of his emergency fund to get in on day one shares. He never read a single financial filing from the company. All he knew was one thing. Everyone in that group was talking about it. And he was terrified of being the only one left behind. In the same city, the same week, there's another engineer, earning almost the same $138,000, who saw the same headline, felt the same pull to jump in, and then did something far more boring. He added another $500 to his automatic index fund, exactly like he'd done every payday for the past 6 years. 2 people, nearly identical income, the exact same emotional spike looking at the exact same headline. But the decisions they made came from 2 very different places in their heads. And that's what I want to unpack today. Not whether that IPO was good or bad, but why financially smart people can suddenly start investing like they're panicking. This isn't about SpaceX. This isn't about AI, gold, or whatever asset happens to be trending this month. This is about the hidden relationship between the fear of missing out and the financial decisions we regret 6 months later. Look at the data. Research on retail investor behavior, going back through FINRA studies and various investor surveys, shows a consistent pattern year after year. The majority of individual investors who buy right after major news spikes, an IPO, a tech breakout, a commodity frenzy, tend to buy near the short-term price peak, then sell in a panic once the price corrects. Studies on retail investor flows over the past 2 decades find the same thing again and again. The biggest money flows into an asset usually arrive the latest, after most of the gains have already happened. Read that again. The most money arrives the latest. Why does this happen when these people, including our engineer in Austin, actually understand the math, understand compound interest, might even be more financially literate than average? Because a FOMO-driven investing decision doesn't come from the part of the brain that calculates. It comes from the same part that makes us start running when we see other people running. An ancient survival mechanism that assumes if everyone is moving in the same direction, there must be danger or opportunity I'm missing. I am not done yet. There's a second subtler layer. Social media and modern investing groups create what psychologists call an illusion of consensus. You see 50 people on your timeline talking excitedly about one stock or IPO, and your brain concludes this must be the majority opinion. But what you're actually seeing is a small handful of the loudest voices, usually the people who got in earliest and need the validation to feel like their decision was right. You're not looking at a market signal. You're looking at the echo of a tiny echo chamber. That's still not everything. Third layer. Every time an asset's price spikes fast, our brain recalculates potential regret disproportionately. The pain of missing out feels psychologically heavier than the pain of an actual dollar loss. And that's what makes people willing to raid emergency funds, delay bills, even go into debt, just to avoid the feeling of having missed the train. Let's talk about 2 simple rules you can use right now. Rule 1. If the reason you're buying an asset is everyone's talking about it, that's not a strategy. That's social pressure wearing a strategy's clothes. Rule 2. More practical. If you can't explain your investment decision in one sentence without mentioning someone else's name or someone else's group chat, stop before you hit transfer. Now, let me walk you through the signs you're investing out of FOMO, not out of a conscious decision. Sign 1. You'd never heard of this company or asset until this week, but you already feel like you have to get in before the weekend. Sign 2. Your source of information is a group chat, not a financial filing or a prospectus. Sign 3. You're using money earmarked for something else, emergency fund, house down payment, near-term retirement savings, and telling yourself, I'll replace it once this pays off. Sign 4. You feel anxious if you don't check the price every hour after buying. Sign 5. Your main reason isn't, I understand this business model, it's, the price has to go up because everyone's buying. Sign 6. You've already rehearsed the justification you'll give your partner or yourself before you've even transferred the money. That's a sign the rational part of your brain already knows this decision isn't solid. Sign 7, and this one gets overlooked the most. You don't have an exit plan. You know when you want to get in, but you don't know when you'll stop, whether it goes up or down. Now back to our two engineers in Austin, because this is where the difference really shows up over time. Let's call the first one David. David pulled $18,000 out of his emergency fund, got in on day 1, and 3 months later, that stock had corrected 22%. Not because the company was bad, but because the initial valuation was too ambitious compared to the fundamentals that came out in the following quarter's earnings report. David now has no emergency fund, doesn't have enough shares to break even, and more expensive than that, he's lost trust in himself as a financial decision maker. Let's call the second one Marcus. Marcus didn't touch the IPO at all. He just added his usual $500 to his global index fund that month, like always. 6 months later, he genuinely doesn't know, and honestly doesn't care, whether the stock that had his Discord group buzzing went up or down, because his decision was never dependent on what anyone else was doing. This isn't a story about index funds always win, individual stocks always lose. Sometimes David turns out to be right, and Marcus is the one who missed the momentum. But that's not the point. The point is, Marcus's decision stays reasonable regardless of the outcome, because he made it before any of the noise even started. David's decision only makes sense if the price goes up. And a strategy that's only correct when the outcome is good isn't a strategy, it's gambling dressed up as investing. This is where the reframe matters. Real wealth whispers, fake decisions scream. Healthy financial decisions usually feel boring the moment you make them. No adrenaline, no exciting story to tell your friends that same week. So what should you actually do this week if you feel the pull to jump on whatever investing trend is hot right now? An IPO, an AI stock, gold, or whatever goes viral next month? This week, write down one sentence explaining why you want to buy that asset without using the words everyone, it's trending, or FOMO. If you can't write that sentence, that's your answer. This month, build a written rule for yourself. A maximum percentage of your portfolio that's allowed to go towards speculative or trending assets, and never touch your emergency fund for it, no matter the reason. This quarter, review the last 3 investment decisions you made because it was trending. Not to feel regret, but to spot the pattern, so you can recognize yourself faster next time that pull shows up. This isn't financial advice or an invitation to buy or avoid any specific asset. Every investment decision still depends on your own situation, goals, and risk tolerance. And it's worth discussing with a professional who understands your specific circumstances. But there's one thing that doesn't depend on anyone's situation. The money that ends up regretted the most is the money that moved because of fear of missing out. Not the money that moved because you actually understood where it was going and why.